Alrighty, welcome to week 2 in JavaScript. Today is actually Sunday, and my goal this semester, and I'm just going to state it outright, but have you ever noticed when you state a goal, it makes you a little nervous? Can you achieve it? Well, I think that's kind of what goals are for. Will I always achieve what I'm about to say? I don't know. I hope so. So here's what I'm talking about. It is Sunday. The semester officially starts tomorrow. Some of you, which is cool, are already in working. My goal is to make week 2 available at the beginning of the week 1 and having that rolling forward. So to do that, I had to actually work on Sunday to get it done. Do I like working on Sunday? No, I have a lot of other things to do. I'm going to do them. And it's a beautiful day. But that's what goals are about. You make sacrifices to meet what it is you're trying to do. And I'm guessing you're all here for that reason. So I'm glad you're here. I hope week 1 was enjoyable or at least gave you a sense of where we're going. So in week 2, we actually have a regular week. Now, what do I mean by that? So I'm going to pull back my canvas real quick, meaning I have another tab here. So I'm going to pull back, and there was your week 1. And you can see week 2 is not published yet. But over part of yesterday and today, I went through and worked on the content that you're going to see. Okay. So in this case, we're going to go over some things, but I am going to, my goal is at the end of this video to publish this to give you access to it if you happen to have completed all the way through Who's in the House. Okay, and you can see, as you have already noticed, that this course has to be done in sequential mode. Okay. So now, just a brief overview. We're not going to talk about this stuff in detail because actually a lot of this has its own video. I'm just going to give you the overview, okay? So we'll talk about attendance in a minute. You're going to have also due on the 19th, which is a Monday. That's not a holiday, is it? I think it's the following. Oh, you know what? Let me check. So it looks like it is. So that's, I'm glad I thought of that. So in this case, you will see these when you get in here as listed on the 20th, okay? So, but you could work on them. And again, the benefit of posting work ahead is it gives you more flexibility in what you do. But anytime there's a campus holiday, I always move to the next due date. Now for this second week, this makes it, different. But just know going forward, this is kind of the way the weeks, well, actually, I shouldn't say that because there are going to be some weeks when we actually do project development, but we'll talk about that later. Okay. So for the 20th, which will be updated, you'll have a code along that you'll do. Now, part of this code along you're going to do for attendance, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then you'll finish the rest of it, okay? And there's videos for all of those things. All the content for this course, did I tell you this, is done by me. So that's why it's completely free. And it really should be that way in my humble opinion, okay? So, and then you will have an optional break because the second code along is actually going to be also due at that date. But if you get the first one done, then you can go ahead and submit, and that will tell me that, hey, I finished the first one, and then you can take a break. So the break, and I'm just going to look at it here so we can see it, is you got through the first one, and then you can take a well-deserved break, or maybe you have momentum and you want to keep going. But in order to get this break, you had to have completed the first code along. Okay, maybe you want to recharge. As long as you submit the second code along by early, now I'm saying Wednesday, okay, Wednesday morning. So even though, we're back on campus officially on Tuesday of week 2, right, you'll have to have completed this by that Wednesday morning. Okay, giving you a little more time. Now, when I say early here, here's what you can get used to with me as well, is that I get up pretty early, right? In the morning. I'm a early rise, do my exercise, sit down and grade, do content, and then I try to stop my day around 5 or 6. Okay, so just to let you know that, and again, these will change. Okay, so we have 2 code alongs where you actually just code along with me. You have to do it the way I require. You have to put in comments, do the commits, and submit your commit history. Okay, and then you're going to have an AI checkpoint. Now, this is for that Thursday night, and then you will have a U code. So in these last 2 items, here's the concepts. is we're actually learning and learning. So you code along with me. And then the AI checkpoint, I take that code that you've written, I put it in an AI system, and I'll talk about, there's a video for this, that'll see how well you got those concepts, and then you'll actually code. So all of these, both of these, and actually all of this has video associated with it, but I'm just giving you the breakdown for what the week looks like. Okay, so let's actually go into week 2. Okay, so this is a summary, right? So we're gonna dive into the fundamentals of JavaScript. We're gonna get some practice using Git, version control, participate in a class discussion from past students. You'll see this at the end, right? You'll complete 2 code-alongs, checkpoints, and a U-code. Okay, so now assignments, and I'm going to do it. I already did the overview of week 2, so actually we'll get into the graded work, and you can see whenever, and here's what you know is the attendance is a part of your grade, okay? Now, this first part, I just want to give you the heads up because I actually ran into this in my database class that with the new, and especially if you're using VS Code code space version, they have integrated AI into those virtualize, and because you're using a virtualized container, and I just want you to know I recommend disabling them. Now I don't see your environment, and I actually had my students in database actually walk through the process of actually how to disable them. I work locally typically in this class, so if I was to bring up my VS Code and when you first install it, you may have this build with agent. I would definitely get rid of that. There's a little 3 dots, and you can say turn off the show by default. And then over here where it says finish the setup, I would come over here and just hide it. Okay. Now, why do I say that? Because when you come into a technical interview, you're not going to have an AI assistant. So it is good that what the idea of this class is actually for you to learn how to code. Okay. All right. So the other thing is, before I get into this week, is the last video I recorded before this one was actually for that checkpoint at the end of the week. And I'm just going to give you a little heads up here because after I recorded it, I went and looked at my code. So what you're about to see, we haven't covered yet. So it's a little bit of a what is it? It's a preview of something. So what you're going to end up doing is doing at the very end of the week this shopping cart. And as I went over in the video, I was talking about the fact that the logic, and you'll learn that this week, an if-else block. So if this condition exists, do this, else do this. Now you could just have an if block by itself, but actually had the instruction write an if-else code block. And so in the discussion, I said, well, wait a minute, maybe because I had it, there was some logic to turn the color of this. And so I decided you actually could do this. So like, here's the page and you'll learn about this. You add, so it starts as, and might be a little hard to see, but it actually starts, where is that? Zoom in. I have it so zoomed in I can't see it. Yeah, it's actually not zooming in the parts that I want, but no big deal. So in this case, if I refreshed, it by default, it's black. And then when I click it the first time, it turns green, which means we can go. And by the way, when we get to 60 is when it turns red and it adds to over budget. So that is one way you could actually do that. If you want to refer back to this when you're looking at that, that's cool. Okay. So, and one more thing before we get into the actual graded part, what we're going to be doing in the code alongs after this week is actually building a carbon footprint calculator. As a matter of fact, this is the carbon footprint calculator we're going to end up building, okay, is this one here. Let's reset it. Okay, so it's actually going to, this is the final, like at the end of all of our code alongs. Like if I said, in this case, it's asking for my location, I'm going to allow, and what that's going to do is actually go out and fetch based on my Latin long. It's actually going to go out and fetch the AQI. I have to see what happened there. But more importantly, and this comes at the end, is we're going to have a form where we enter content information like number of households, square footage, all this content in order to determine what the carbon footprint is. and then it'll display in a table, and we'll do some nice clearing of the table when we don't want it listed. We'll do some validation. There's a lot we're going to do here. So this is the thing we're going to be coding together through the semester, okay? And then what you will do is you'll do your version of that same concept as we get to the decision app, which I think we'll hit for the first time in week 4 or 5. Okay, so just to give you a little preview. So now what are you going to do for this one? So as I mentioned before, you are going to have a code along, and the first code along, I'm just going to go ahead and click into it, and I'm actually going to go into the instruction here, okay? We're going to do the setup and step 1 during attendance. That's what we're doing now, okay? And then when you get in here, you'll complete the rest of these, all right? So make sure you read this, but I'm going to go ahead and open up the, oh, and by the way, here's a good thing to know, right? So actually I'm going to go to our course because that link, and that's good that I checked it. So in our course, if you haven't noticed, there are, and you're going to start seeing public repos show up. You'll see files, and this is the link that I actually need to fix. So in this case, in week 2, there we go. So this is that link. Okay, so this is to the code along for 2.1, and I got to fix this link because it didn't show up correctly. So in this code along, you're going to do the steps to create the project files, and there's a video for you to do that. It's going to walk you through doing this, okay? And then you're going to add some styles into there, and then you're going to do setup, okay, for setup done. Okay, so you'll do that first part, you'll do the setup, and then you will do part 1, declaring variables. So there's a part 1, 2, 3, and 4, and this one also has a video here, okay? Let me just make sure. And that's the other thing, is when you're doing these code alongs, and I say this up here, you want to right click and open. Markdown is really weird, and this is what we're using here. In order to, if you right click and open that, if you want to have that in another tab, okay? All right, so just to let you know that. So what you're going to do for the attendance is you're going to go through, you're going to create a folder in your private repo, okay? And then you're going to copy from what we did in week 1 in the public, and then you'll end up with these files, and you'll add this, and then you'll do a commit. So remember, when you're doing commits, you first do the git add star, in this case, pulls everything, git commit with this message. And then in this case, because we're gonna, you're normally you would do other parts, but because this is part of attendance, you would then do, oh, actually you'll do part 1. So you could do the commit message here, and then do all the way through here, and then you would do your git push, because I'm going to grade how your work on this, and really we're just giving you that experience of getting started with the code along work, because you may have some questions about the way things are set up, but again, there's video in there to help you with that. But here's what I want you to do. So once you finish the setup in part 1, then you reply with a question or comment to the post, okay? I'll show you the other thing we're going to do. So you'll reply here. Now, you don't have to, and this can be a little weird, for this code along, like when you did the development setup and you gave me your commit history and you set up your URL for how we share in the future, or actually you did in week 1. This one, because it's a discussion, you're like, how do I share the commit history? Well, in this case, you don't have to. Now, when you're actually doing the rest of this work in that actual code along, you will end up at the end giving me your commit history, okay? But for attendance, you don't have to, okay? So this is what I was saying. Once you finish this, reply with a comment or question, and I will grade your work directly from your GitHub repository. Now, actually, I often will copy or clone those into my own system as well. So make sure, and this is what I was just saying, you do a git push so I can review your code, because in this case, you're working in the private repo, which means it's only between you and I. So other students can't see it. It's just part of what I'm doing in attendance to help you get started with these code-alongs, right? And your grade will be based on your commits and your code-along and your working code. This is how I grade all code-along work. Okay, so total of 50 points, and you can see how I break that down. Now, I did notice I left this in there from the last semester, and I will tell you that this course has been completely redone. I spent this last summer, not, and in this case, we're coming into the spring 2026. I spent the summer 2025 rewriting this course with Gemini. I actually spent almost the entire summer doing it, and it was a great experience, I have to say. But so anyway, I'm just telling you that. So when you see this, some of the video, or the video for the code longs up until week 11 are from summer. Okay, just FYI. Okay, so that's the first part. So 50 points is you get from doing the setup, right? Creating that directory, copying over the ending code from week 1 public, right? And this is what's really important, your public week 1 folder, because could you recreate those? Sure. But in this case, we already have them, so let's just do that. And that's a fairly common thing we do going forward. And then once you get through part 1, right, you push your code, and then you come to the discussion, and then you hit reply with any comment or question, okay? All right, so now part 2. Attendance is worth 100 points total, right? You can go into simple syllabus to look at what that breakdown is. And by the way, you should actually spend a little time looking at simple syllabus. Like, one of the things you want to look at, and hopefully by the time you get here, we will have the tutor hours loaded so you know when and how to get help. But it's really important to get help and don't struggle alone. You'll hear me talk about this, okay? All right, so now let's talk about the second part, right? So actually, I'm going to change this because actually it's advice from past students. So below the resources, and you will see me just talk about some of the resources here. And I did put, just the tutor hours and Discord, which I will cover in a minute. But let me scroll down below this. So what I did, I realized today, because I had done this for my database class, but I forgot to do it here, but I had asked students for their feedback. So what I did is I took all that feedback and I had Gemini summarize it into the top advice from previous students. So if you want to read their raw feedback, it's in here. But if you want to review this or a combination of the two, but the golden rule, right? Always work ahead, how to handle AI, effective learning strategy. So this is the summary of what the students said. Don't struggle alone. Utilize resources, way important, right? Now, this is what the students said, right? And so the value of the code reviews, and so this is actually the technical interview here. And then the mindset, right? It's a journey, not a destination. Don't give up on your vision, right? So I love this because this is not from me. This is from students who have taken this class, okay? So what you want to do on this one, so after you post any question or comment from doing the code along, then underneath that, and you could, by the way, give it a heading to kind of make it separate or something, is review the advice given, right? And then your initial post is post your thoughts to ensure, and ensure your post is substantive and provides your own perspective. I like using AI to write for you isn't helpful. Drafting your thoughts, like get your thought. I do this very commonly. I will get my thoughts down and organize and actually think through what I want to say, and then use AI to make it more clear when somebody else reads it. But just use AI responsibly in this case, okay? And I think what happens is when we don't do our own thinking process and just give it maybe a sentence, that's not helpful, right? Really do your best to put your thoughts down. And if you want to use AI to help you make it clearer, that's cool, okay? All right, so now in this case, you get 30 points for that post, okay? And then reply to at least one classmate to foster discussion. Now, I don't require 2, I only require 1 here, okay? So those are the two. Like when I was talking about headings, if you wanted to just see this, which by the way, this is a great thing to know as well, because you're gonna, if you haven't taken HTML and CSS, which some of you haven't, we could talk about why students are here and haven't taken that. It's because this checks a box for their degree, their selected degree. If you're in web development, you've taken possibly my 82 or you've taken 85 or maybe 28. So, but regardless, in order to take JavaScript, we at least have to give you some introduction to HTML, and we're going to get that. We've kind of already gotten some of that, and we get a little more as we go forward. So if I wanted to do, like, what was the first one? Was the code along. If I wanted to do code along part 1, okay, and setup, I could do this, select, and then do a heading. Now, you actually don't, if you know how to write code, you can actually just write code in here instead of actually having to do what we call the WYSIWYG, right? And then you could write here, right? So that's in regular paragraph. And then you could say advice. Now, I don't care what heading, and I'm not going to mark off. I'm just giving you this so in the future, if you see, hey, use a particular heading, and I will say that more in Markdown, but this could work as well. From past students, right? You could also select it. Now, I could just go in here as well, see this, and I could just do, let's see, does it do, yeah, it probably doesn't do what we call emit to make my life a little easier. So I actually have to code it, right? So H3, H3, right? So in that case, I didn't actually use the WYSIWYG, I actually coded it myself, and then you would write, you know, what I asked for that post. Okay, so I know there's a bit of information that I've gone over for this, and if you have any questions, please reach out, right? We're coming into week 2, this a really important week, because this is our regular, like, for what you will see. And actually the other thing is, and I will end with this, is that based on previous class, the previous semester's feedback is why I've changed the way the weekly layout of content is, because one of the things we really, between Brianna, students who gave me feedback, we looked at how the class went last semester. We really said we wanted to sooner rather than later start having you code, okay? Because when you're just coding along with me, you're not actually getting in there and thinking about and doing the code yourself. So you can see for next week, week 3, I actually have to go through and reorganize this, include the AI and then the checkpoints there as well. So it is Sunday, January 11th, before the semester starts. I'm actually going to, now that I've done this video, I will actually publish it and meet my goal for, in this case, for the first week by having the second week available. All right, glad you're here. I'm sure there was something I forgot to talk about. Oh yeah, I think I forgot to talk about usage on your code spaces, but I'm not sure how many people are using code space, so I need to cover that fairly soon. But you do want to track your usage. All right, I will quit. Bye.